Hello, and welcome back to Let's Get Weird Together, the show where we talk about how defined societal norms can be the most healing things. And today we have a very special guest, Flo Ankah, who is this amazing actor, singer, and also magical theta healing instructor. Welcome, Flo.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, I don't know which topic to start in first. So, how did you get into acting? Let's start there.
Oh, wow. I was studying dance in France,
Mm-hmm.
and I I was deeply curious, and this curiosity hasn't left me. Um, I'm always in classes, learning new things. But so when I came here, what I knew in France was dance. And then in the program that I was in, it was a different kind of dance. It was modern dance. And there was something inside me that felt like it wasn't enough, that I wasn't going to be able to sustain a life only being a body moving through space. And so somehow I felt that I had this need to expose more of me. And then I started taking acting classes. And of course, I had a limited English and a very thick accent. But I felt that I think I was curious about the truth, that is the question. And now, with my uh, path, as a healer, as a theta healing instructor, I think that the link is really consciousness, and over the years, I have let go in a way of dancing. And it's something that I do miss, but I feel that this aspect of consciousness, of understanding things, looking at things through different perspectives, is something that was more feeding my soul.
Okay. Wonderful. And then when did you get into singing?
Well,
Or
I always wanted to be an actress. And
Mhm.
the reality is, because of my accent, I wasn't getting opportunities. Even once I got my O1 visa, there's a visa when you come to a different, to the United States as a foreigner. To be allowed to be here, you need to organize your immigration status. So I got a visa as an actress of extraordinary ability. And the only thing I was allowed to do was really work as an actor, but I couldn't get work because of my accent. So I was really looking inside and be very smart. What can I do, um, to be here and to become who I wanted to be? And there was a gentleman who had organized a film festival in the south of France, and he was smart. And I was asking him advice, and he was saying, nobody is going to want to come see you. You need to create something unique and important. And so then he suggested, if you sing, maybe people will come and pay tickets. So this was very foreign to me, like wanting to be an artist, but then you had to become a business person and make sure people attended. So I just did what people told me to do. And the very first show I had, I got a director. He told me, you wear this, you cross your leg this way, you look that way. I did everything they said, and people seemed to enjoy it. So the reality is, looking back, um, I I had no idea how to sing. Now I've learned so much about the technique and everything. So I have an instrument now, whereas before I had like sort of a nice sound, and perhaps I was a nice person on stage. It looked like I was happy to be on stage, so people were, you know, ha satisfied, or to watch me do the best I could. But yeah, it was kind of like a miracle that I could be on stage for an hour singing French songs with a bunch of musicians. I had not gone to school for that stuff, and the reality is now, what is most successful, in terms of performance, is definitely the singing. So sometimes, yeah, different ways get you to what you need to be inspired to. So really trusting your curiosity, and trusting that the right people are going to give you the, answers, and then also trusting what it is that you are curious about. Because at first, with the singing, my sister told me, well, you have you're a French singer, you have to wear heels and lipstick and dresses. But I was kind of boyish, and for me, that was a big stretch. So I became more feminine because my little sister, who's 10 years younger than me, told me that's what I had to do, and I trusted her. And and in the end, I was doing cover song of old-fashioned singers like Edith Piaf. And now, you still need to go for finding more truth. And so I bring in more comedy now. I bring in more a little bit more a perspective that's perhaps more provocative, that's more authentic to me now. So yeah, the you have to also follow your instinct and what fills your heart with joy. And so it takes years, I think, to find your artistic voice. So yeah, it's a combination of things why I ended up being a professional singer.
And you mentioned it a little bit too, that you found the truth in singing. Have you found the truth that you wanted to find in acting? Have you also found that in singing to the degree that you wanted?
I think I haven't found the truth in acting to the degree that it exists currently in my life as a singer. And I think when we look at theta healing, right, and these questions of belief, I still have um, maybe a shyness to expose my heart. The truth is, some of the roles that I'm really fun at is the bad guys, and there is an embarrassment sometimes when you allow yourself to be that person that's actually mean or that's cruel in the script. And so I know that I have been very powerful in these kinds of roles
Mhm.
when when I'm doing studies or some of my close friends or family member, right? They say that I would be great as Cruella de Vil. But so there's some belief still with me around this notion of validation, right? Validated myself. So so I feel like I'm still learning to really trust that I'm allowed to have my dream, my plan A, right? So I think it's lovely because I feel it means that I still have in my inner child this desire that it can work. And then at the same time, there is also the confidence that you don't need to rush, that
Mhm.
the right piece of material, the right film, or the right play is really going to foster relationships that are your divine timing and what you're meant to be doing. So it could be a little bit of that. It could be a little bit of the lack with my process as an actor. It could also be, I was working on myself as I was, sharing some information with some of my students in class. And yeah, I feel like sometimes I have this energy of being driven or motivated by shame.
Mhm.
Right. And so that's kind of like more like an undercurrent if you look at the technique of theta healing,
Mhm.
you know. And so there perhaps is an aspect of my humanity where I'm a little bit of a perfectionist and I want to become the best me because before I show who me is to the world, and so it's a little bit silly because I could
Mhm.
still go to auditions, I could still share my Broadway songs, and go to the union and meet nice friends. But there is a little bit of a resistance still with acting. So I definitely feel that I'm much more accomplished with the singing and the aspect of comedy. You take a microphone, you get on stage and you present your material, but you have to listen to the audience. So I'm more accomplished in that way than I am as an actress. Um, but the irony is that I did went to the
Mhm.
conservatory for acting, so I'm much more knowledgeable, and so maybe that is one of the reason why my perfectionism is a little bit higher as an actor than as a singer, because I feel like people have always given me the benefit of the doubt as a singer.
Okay. So you think that they're just being kind in a way as a singer, but they're holding you to a higher standard as an actor.
I think they is
You
me.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to hold myself to a
Yeah.
very high standard, so I take my time. And, it's lovely, the perfectionism and the
Mhm.
satisfaction of creating something unique and beautiful that fulfills your taste. But then also I could be more generous and put myself out there without this energy of self-judgment.
Right.
So
And so, what is it that you personally like about playing one of the bad guys?
well, it's yeah, that's a good question. And it's funny because the first instinct is to say, no, I don't really like that. It's harder. That's
Mhm.
probably what I like. It's harder because you need to really stretch your compassion. You can't have an ounce of judgment, otherwise it's phony.
Mm-hmm.
Character doesn't judge themselves.
Yeah.
So you cannot see your own darkness as you're the character. So you need to find reasons that are very twisted that me, the Flo actress self, would be like, but this is bad. Why are you doing this? Right. So it's a little bit from the perspective of theta healing, right? This duality of the fifth plane. And yeah, I think what scares me in it is recognizing the power of the darkness. So I also write. And so I was in a playwriting intensive in Clarksdale, Mississippi earlier this year because Tennessee Williams did a lot of his work inspired by his place of birth and where he was producing all this work. And in the beginning of the workshop, it was funny because it came out of my mouth. I was saying, I'm not afraid of the darkness. And it's something that I had to hold myself to as I was continuing to write my play because it's something that I think if you expose the darkness in your art, then it creates a space for people to recognize the light. So it's something that's useful, that's generous.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you embody, in your cells, your emotion, your hormones are experiencing that, it's quite vulnerable. I think it was Martha Graham, the German choreographer, was coaching a lot of actors because of her theatricality. And she was saying that actors are the athletes of the soul.
Yeah.
So for sure, yeah, it's a workout, just the same way as, people who are listening, right? Who are theta healing instructors, right? It takes a lot of fortitude to accompany a group, to self-discover, to, you know, come on this spiritual
Mhm.
path and recognize that they can become the real them,
Yeah.
right? Because the world needs you. And it takes that's something that I'm still growing with, but that I feel that people do, we need leaders in this world. And it, it takes courage to step into your power. So yeah, so the being able to embody characters that are quite dark without judgment is something that I'm still wrestling with how. And hopefully the right roles and the right collaborations will come through. And then, I'll understand, how to let the light shine through the arts.
Absolutely. And well, one side note that keeps popping in my head, I was having real trouble in disease and disorder yesterday, not referencing Tennessee William when we are talking about pleurisy, because it's such a big part of the glass menagerie. I'm like, these students are not actors, do not go down that rabbit hole. But also thinking about, as an actor, when you get into the someone else's paradigm, do you think it's also helped you as a healer to understand different perspectives when you work with clients?
Oh, wow, it's the other way around.
Okay.
My God, I feel so rich as a person
Mm.
because I'm a professional practitioner. And yeah, I mean, once you do the intuitive anatomy and you recognize, it's this 3-week masterclass in theta healing, recognize how the brain, everyone's brain is hooked up so differently. And, sometimes I have people that are, doing sessions with me, they're doing a 3 month program or a one-on-one session. Um, and you recognize that I'm reading stuff on them, but it's opening up my entire world. Like I didn't know these thoughts existed, but because they need it for their personal development, for their spirituality, for their particular life circumstances, I feel so rich. So I'm my life is enhanced because of the understanding. So the curiosity, I think, is really with the one-on-one.
Hmm.
The healing for me is really through the teaching,
Right.
right? When I teach, it's like you're bringing this information that other people need, but then it heals you without having to have you work on yourself. So every class is different and it's a workout.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's this whole artistic slash healing arts path. It takes a lot of humility because you're really present, and that's the service is to show up. And then people, if it's people who are um doing the sessions or participating in the training, their mouth and their energy, you figure out what it is they need. So it's
Yeah.
custom tailored to that group, to that little soul family. So I think that this is more this way that the healing enriches my my fluency as an actor, as somebody who's writing a play, who's inventing a story, you know. I think the way that it's the other way around, the arts informing the healing, is that in the arts, we are very hands-on with coaching, with, okay, this is what you could do with your voice. How about you put it a little more forward? Did you think about looking here at the end of the scene? Like, perhaps keep your breathing open. So there's always this questioning of like going for more truth or trying things that are different.
Hmm.
So in the classes, I like to, it's not that I like to keep the groups smaller, but I have had the experience of guiding groups that are sometimes small groups. And
Hmm.
it gives us this opportunity to really, coach and get people to recognize that the questions they are sometimes maybe the answer. I often find myself saying that the fact that you're asking, it looks like you're on point with the integrity of it. And it's not about what the answer is the fact that you're asking the question that makes you a wonderful ethical practitioner and instructor.
Hmm. And so is that the practitioner asking the right questions in session or the client asking questions of themselves?
The practitioner asking the right questions of themselves. So I think that when people start theta healing, they do the basic DNA, the advanced DNA, the dig deeper, and maybe even you and the creator. These four training are solid foundation training, and it makes you, yeah, really capable of guiding somebody through whatever they're going through right now without imposing your own perspective,
Hmm.
really giving people a chance to reorganize their wisdom and, feeling comfortable to receive support and healing energy. So, because we teach people about belief, we teach them that what they think in the subconscious does make a difference and is important. People sometimes get into the trap of, what's the right question? What question should I be asking? And
Right.
the reality is the training, it does give you a rigorous path
Hmm.
or different ways of digging. And what happens is when you go through more trainings, you go through different topics, you it happens that the technique becomes yours a little bit. You making yours. So the formality of how to dig one way or another kind of like dissipates.
Yeah.
Then you start to trust yourself more. And then you find that a session is just you talking with somebody else.
Hmm.
So it takes away, like you've learned how to like drive a bicycle, and it takes you places. So it's no longer about how am I supposed to turn to the different speed of that bicycle right now? Did I do it in the right order?
Hmm.
And so it's not the putting the pressure on what's the right question. The more you move forward and you and the creator, you and your inner circle, it becomes about how can I go deeper?
Hmm.
Does this person need more understanding right now, or they're already ready for the healing? Are they stuck in the undercurrent?
Hmm.
Is the session complete? Is it still the ego, or are we going to the creator's lesson? So it is the question that you ask yourself as a practitioner, I think are important because a lot of time when I'm teaching and people get stuck in session, um, it's stuff that happens to me every day. It's good that I'm stuck because it means that, okay, we need something new. Hello, creator.
Hmm.
So you could really ask yourself, it is again, what does this person need right now? Do they need a little more understanding? Well, I'm going to dig on the fear, right? Have I been asking them question for 10 minutes? Let's relax, Flo. Okay, let's go to the part of the session that's more witnessing of the healing energy and, perhaps sharing some energetic downloads, right? Sharing a little perspective so that they can be equipped to come up with their own answers, right? They need a little help. They need the healing. So so listening is something that over the years, because the very first time I took Theta Healing was in 2005. Can you imagine? I was a child. And I only did my teacher training starting in 2015, right? But it was something I deeply enjoyed. It was a mentality. It was, I think, around 2012, 13, that a healing center that was only Theta Healing was created in New York. And it sort of re-inspired me because I loved the community aspect. So it's something that with my students, I teach in French or in English. I put a nice emphasis, a nice effort to try to create those bonds outside of the training because that's what helped me as a person, right? So over the years, right, since 2005, even though I was just a theta healing tourist back in the day, um, I think that's the one thing that I could say it has taught me among making me who I am, right? It's very formative training and it makes you a cool human. Um, but it's the listening. It's
Hmm.
so, and I think maybe you were thinking about talking about the world that we live in today, and maybe when there is more of a difficult time, you know, what can be some of the tools
Hmm.
um, to be a better participant of society, right? Um, so I'm asking my own question, which I'm reading, which I think maybe you want to ask me, right? Solutions on how to
Yeah.
handle crises and stuff like that, right? So, I mean, I guess how would you ask the question? Is there something that I can enlighten that is more specific to something you thought I could bring to your audience?
Well, actually, we're going to touch on listening because that's actually been what's been coming up for me. And then I'll ask the question. Literally, the last 2 weeks, the conversation I've been having in my local community is around when things are so divided, how do we learn how to listen better? Because I believe that communication is stopped if you can't listen. So I love that you brought up listening. But yeah, the question I've been asking everyone is like, how do we, looking ahead into the next year or two, there is going to be turmoil and things, and like this country has changed and the world has changed a lot. So as a healer, what's the best way to navigate that?
So first of all, I'm so glad that I asked you the question so that you can ask me the question because it gives me chills.
Hmm.
Right, so I think that question is incredibly powerful. When we talk about forgiveness, it's a tricky topic, right? Because somebody sometimes is not ready to listen. And so we think we know, oh, I need to forgive, right? Forgiveness is the right thing. And it's a little bit the same thing with listening. Somebody who's not equipped to listen, unfortunately, it's not available to them. So I think a dose of compassion, right? So I think one of the key answer for me, right, it's going to be working on myself, right? Because we're not and we're not in a convincing
Hmm.
mode when we do theta healing, right? And it's a topic that's still difficult for me because, for example, my mom and my dad, they have opposite political beliefs in France. But
Hmm.
then myself and my family, we have opposite political beliefs, about the world and the United States, which they don't live in, which is a little bit hard thinking of like, okay, I'm going to go to my family vacation and I'm going to be a kind daughter, ah, I'm a theta healing teacher. I have to walk the talk. I must be nice.
Hmm.
And right. And so I come from a family where people have a big charisma, have a loud voice. Right. Sometimes when I sing, this gentleman say, "Oh, you have such a nice voice." And then I tell to him, "Yes, I have my father's voice. He's loud." Right. So people are loud at the family table and people want to be right. So it's been something that I'm struggling with because my overcorrection, right, is that, oh, we have to be diplomatic. We have to make sure everyone is heard. What is your perspective and everything? And sometimes if you go into that more sage mindset, right? I'm just doing a theta healing nerd talk. I'm
Yeah.
using all these technical terms of the technique. But when you're in your sage mindset, sometimes you recognize you have to cut through. And it's okay for somebody, who step in as a leader, right? But you cannot impose or dictate that you're
Mhm.
thinking is the best thinking. So listening for some people is they're handicapped, and this is not something that they currently have in their humanity. So I think it's a lot to ask, unfortunately. So I think it's leading by example. I think that healing is an act of leadership. I think that if I change who I am, if I do the action that feels accurate within reason, right? With self-respect, right? So it's not meaning somebody is breaking everything and I'm a good person and I'm going to forgive them. See, that's a little too much, right? So just taking actions that are whole with the integrity of who you are, recognizing that people do have free will, which sometimes is heartbreaking, but they do have free will. They do. They are a citizen. They are incarnated on this earth. They have a birthright to create, and that's how they cast their vote. And that
Mhm.
is free will. And I think that on both sides, there is a hunger, right? So maybe on the bluer side, there is a little bit of a right self-righteousness, and there
Yeah.
is a little bit of a I'm better than you kind of energy. And on the other side, there's this deep desire to be heard and this
Mhm.
discomfort, this feeling misunderstood or talked down to. So again, I live in New York, so I see that discrepancy. I feel like people have voted in New York, or in, yeah, the entire state, also red. And so these people don't have a voice. These people, we don't hear them, nobody's talking. So it's being made a taboo. And so I'm not saying that we need people who think they're better because they're able to foster a dialogue. I think that every single person, so I am going to my family vacation, is going to need to have difficult conversation in the time that is right for them. And it's going to be uncomfortable. And that's what my task is that. My task is I joyfully brought some of, two friends were from Europe, and I brought them to the voting booth with me, making it an exciting experience to participate in society. There I know that some people, so what is the actions that I can have, right? So as a theta healing teacher, I really I really don't cast my political, beliefs, because some of my clients are of different political beliefs that I am. But then for the first time, right, I posted this little photo of me with the I voted, right, with a funny face on my social media. And I was describing my undercurrent,
Mhm.
right? So I was using this. So in a way, I felt like, okay, but it's important for me to know that I'm allowed to believe this way, right? So I know that in the past, when I went back to my family vacation, like 2 years ago, one of our family friends said, "Okay, let's talk about politics," and I rebuffed it. I said, "No, we're not," because I didn't want to have a disagreement with my parents. So it's just these kinds of things that I'm growing as a person, and now it's okay for me to have a dialogue
Mhm.
And everyone is going to have this on an individual side. And I think the job is to still love people, even if they're different. But I don't know how to do it. And I think you can figure it out.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Oh, so before we leave, first of all, if people want to study with you, work with you, how do people get a hold of you?
Oh, cool. Yeah. My website is called Life with Flow.
Wonderful.
.com. So I'm laughing because sometimes I recognize that I'm the one who needs more flow. I'm too much of a perfectionist. But yeah, I think once we're creative, once we're inspired, once we're in theta, there's definitely an energy of fluidity. The divine timing is grabbing us to where we need to be. So we're all looking for this flow, and I hope you find that for yourself, right? Because theta healing can get you unstuck.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. Yay. And thank you to all the listeners. Remember to like, to subscribe, to tell your friends, and keep coming back.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for our friendships.
Me too. You're the best.
Mm.
You too.